Hi, this is Josh Olson, and you're watching Trailers from Hell. And right now, we're going to tackle one of the greatest failures in the history of Hollywood. We're talking about Robert Altman and McCabe and Mrs. Miller. This is a fascinating film from one of America's greatest, most idiosyncratic directors, Robert Altman. He did a couple films like this. The Long Goodbye is another one where he did the exact same thing, where he'd tackle a genre, in that case, hardboiled detective genre. In this case, the Western, with an attempt to make an anti-Western or an anti-hardboiled detective movie. He wanted to kind of deconstruct the genre and do something with it that was would go against the genre itself. In both cases, he fails miserably because The Long Goodbye is one of the great hard-boiled detective movies, and McCabe and Mrs. Miller is absolutely one of the greatest Westerns ever made. It's kind of ironic, kind of fascinating, and I've often wondered what Altman thought of that. The story is pretty simple. Warren Beatty plays a gambler who comes to a small mining town and decides to open up a whorehouse, brings in Julie Christie to help him run the place, and then when the big corporate money comes into town, tries to buy it out from him, he refuses. So they send guys out to get him. And that's pretty much it. But boy, is that a lot to work with this cast and with that crew. There's some fantastic touches in this film. The whores in the movie are not your usual Western whores. They're kind of scary. And they look probably the way they did, at least a little bit more like they did in that era than we're used to in films. The lack of traditional cowboy garb is apparent. Very few people wearing cowboy hats. When they do show up in them, they're kind of absurd looking. And Warren Beatty wears this fur coat that's absolutely fantastic and nothing you've ever seen in a Western before. The movie was shot in sequence, and they were actually building the entire town as they went, which really works for the film because as the movie progresses, you see the town developing in front of you. It also has an incredible series of songs in it from Leonard Cohen. This film is also clearly an influence on the great HBO series Deadwood.
Kind of man, it's hard to hold the hand of anyone who's reaching for the sky just to surrender.